But before that, let us have a look at the verbal reasoning section. So, on the GRE, the verbal reasoning, we have two sections. How many questions do we have per section? We have 20 questions. So, on the two sections, we have 20 questions per section, and we have 30 minutes to do these questions. The overall 40 questions on the two sections of GRE are divided into two types of major types of questions. The first type falls under the fill in the blank questions. The second falls under the reading comprehension questions. The fill in the blank questions, we have two types on the GRE. The sentence equivalence questions and the text completion questions. The reading comprehension can be divided further into two types. You may get the short passages, which are generally considered more to be connected with critical reasoning. Basically, these are single paragraph, maybe one question or maximum two questions you can get. The other are the more longer passages, which can be anywhere from 2 to 5 paragraphs, and 2 to 4 questions can be asked. So, how many questions do we get from each type? On each section, how many questions can we expect? From a feedback of the students from my own taking of the test, I would like to tell you, the GRE gives you a little more weightage to the fill in the blank questions than to the reading, in the sense, out of possible 20 questions you're going to get on each section, you may get around about 11 to 12 questions from the sentence equivalence and text completion questions, and you may get 8 to 9 questions from both the short passages and the long passages per section. Now, the sentence equivalence and text completion questions are the two fill in the blank questions. So, let me explain what they are. The sentence completion questions are usually single sentence and single blank questions. For the single blank, you have 6 options: A, B, C, D, E and F. This particular question is called a sentence equivalence question because for this single blank, the test maker wants you to select 2 answers which are equally appropriate for the blank. So, if you were to select option A for the answer, then you will also have to select option D or E or F, or whichever you think is the correct answer. The challenge here is, for you to get your answers right, both the options you select must be precise and perfect for the blank. Now, coming to the text completion questions, you have here anywhere from a single sentence to a short paragraph as your question. The text completion questions have single, double or triple blank questions. So, if you were to get a single blank, how do I distinguish the single blank text completion question from a sentence equivalence question? Basically, for a single blank text completion questions, you have only 5 options. And you need to select only one option. Remember, whenever you get the test, at the beginning of every question, there is an instruction. The instruction will clearly tell you whether you have to select a single answer or you have to select a double answer. So, make sure that you are clear about it. So, a single blank question on the text completion, you have to select only one answer. If you have a double blank, you have 2 columns of words, A, B and C. Second blank, D, E and F. So, if you have a double blank question, For the first blank, you have to select from A, B, and C. For the second blank, you have to select from D, E, and F. If you have a 3 blank question, then you have a third column of words. Then you have G, H, and I, and you will have to select from the third column. The challenge with the text completion, double blank and triple blank, is again, you have a huge amount of combinations of choices here. If you select option A from the first blank, then you can select from option D, E, or F for the second blank, and you can select from option G, H, or I for the third blank. So therefore, one needs to be perfect in selection of all the choices before you can say that you have really done the question perfectly. Okay, now that we have an understanding of what the sentence equivalence and text completion questions are, how do we do them? What are the challenges before us? How do we tackle this particular question? What skills are required in order to deal with them? That's what we are going to discuss today. So, fill in the blank questions are something that we have been doing all our life, right from schooling. But we have done 2 types of fill in the blank questions. One is knowledge based, and the other is most probably contextual based. So knowledge based questions, for example, you got in a history paper, right? In a history paper, you would be asked a question based on any facts that you have learned. For example, who was a Mughal emperor or the last Mughal emperor to have ruled over Delhi? Then you would remember and fill in the blank with the name of the king that you have memorized. But then you also had contextual language based questions in your English papers. There you would be given a small paragraph. Please come. So you would be given a small paragraph, and this paragraph would have maybe 4 or 5 or even 6 blanks, and you'd be given a set of words from which you would select the answers. Now, how do we go about selecting answers for this kind of a question? How do we go about? What would you do? What's the first thing you would do when you get a question like this? You would read, isn't it? You read the text. You read the question. Now, the first thing you do is the reading of the paragraph, the sentence that you get, for which you have to fill in the blank. But what is the purpose of your reading? Why are you reading it? What are you supposed to do while you're reading? Understand. This is the purpose generally. You're reading a newspaper, you read because you want to understand. But on the GRE, on this particular type of question, reading by itself and understanding is not going to serve the purpose. That understanding has to lead to the next stage. What is the purpose of reading here? You tell me. Why are we reading this particular sentence or paragraph? What is the purpose? In order to fill in the blanks. We need to fill the missing words in the blank. So understanding merely is not going to get us the answer. What are we supposed to do? We are supposed to read critically. Critically means we have to evaluate the content. We have to notice what information is given to us in the sentence or paragraph that might hint, that might tell us directly or indirectly what the missing word is. That means as you're reading your text completion or sentence equivalence questions, you are using your reasoning, thinking skills. You are trying to, locate information. You're trying to compare it with something. You're trying to contrast it with something. You're trying to find out by adding up the information what can you get as a missing word. Okay, now basically when you read, you gathered the information from the sentence. What could possibly be the missing word? What would you do? The third stage. For every question we have choices, answer options. So what would you do? You'd go to the options and you read those choices and you'd select that word or phrase which looks appropriate for the blank. You'd place it in the blank and you read the sentence. Then if it sounds appropriate, then you would move on. That means for you to get yourself the correct answer, the third skill that you need to incorporate on the fill in the blank questions would be your vocabulary skills. Being a GRE test, vocabulary is always going to be a challenge. So therefore, we need to raise our level of vocabulary to be able to do justice to this particular question. So what we are going to do is, we are going to train ourselves in what is called as critical reading. When we read, we evaluate, we assess, we notice the information, we process the information, we analyze the information, we use our thinking. So that using our reading, we get ourselves an idea about the missing word. And then we select the correct word by learning to understand the vocabulary. That means we need to put in some hard work in learning words as well. Okay, now that we have seen that these are the 3 basic skills, let me start by giving you a simple question. And let's see if you can give me an answer. Let me give you some choices. So here we have a very simple question. The students taking the test found it quite dash. I gave you 4 options: difficult, lengthy, boring, predictable. What could be the answer? Difficult, because it's a test, it should be difficult. None of the other options make sense. Lengthy, possible, boring, predictable. Why is it you're confused? Why are you not able to give me a particular answer? Because it's very possible the students taking the test found it quite predictable. It is also possible that they found it lengthy or boring. It is not necessary that it has to be only difficult. Why is it? Yes? So information. So basically what we have in this question is there is no hint or clue as to what the test is. Therefore, any of these answers are possible, and this is the type of question that's not going to come on the GRE. The test maker does not simply take a sentence from somewhere, remove a word here and there and give it to you. Every question has been designed, altered, modified in such a way by the test maker, and this is the most important information I'm sharing with you, that in such a way that every question contains the answer. What did I say? Every question that comes on the fill in the blank will give you enough information that tells you either directly or indirectly what the missing word could be. Now, let me rephrase this question and show it to you as it would look on a typical GRE test question. Let's say, since the students already knew the format and content of the test, they found it quite, now you tell me what could be the answer? Predictable, right? Since the students already knew the format and content of the test, they found it quite predictable. Why was the answer predictable? What told you in the sentence the answer is predictable? Already knew the format and content. So you think the answer should be predictable. But let me make a minor alteration to this sentence. Let me remove the word since and insert the word although. Now if you read the answer for the sentence, what would be the answer now? Difficult. So tell me once again, for you to give me the answers predictable, what were your clues? Your clues were since already knew the format and content, they found the test to be quite predictable. But the moment